we're going to talk about for the next hour or so is about how the food accelerator that we run here out of the UK as part of the EIT, European Institute of Technologies program, works, and what it can do, how it might be helpful to you, and we'll also get you the opportunity to hear from a couple of our alumni, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion. So please do, if you haven't put questions before then, do make sure or feel free to ask whatever you want to know at that point. As far as the agenda for this, so we'll start off. I'll give a bit of a background to what we do, how this particular accelerator runs. I think it's different to many, and that's because of the things that we do using the triple chasm model. I'll spend a little bit of time explaining what that is and how we use it, and then I'll give you a bit more background about the more general things that we do, and how the program works, and how you might approach us if you're interested in applying for the 2022 program. And then around 1:30, I will hand over to Sean, and in fact it's not Rui but Andrea from Micron, Agritech and Fieldwork Robotics. They're from our alumni, and they'll give you a bit of a sense of what it's like to be on the program, and obviously they too will be able to answer questions, and so we'll plan to drop over into the Q&A in about 40 minutes. Hopefully that works for everyone. So just to give you a bit of a background on who I am, I've had quite an interesting and diverse career, from starting off as an officer in the Royal Engineers, being a robotic sculptor, and then finally moving into business, where I worked with some pretty large companies doing transformational change within them. And then I came here about 11 years ago now to help set up the Centre for Industrial Sustainability, which specializes in making manufacturing businesses, or businesses that have manufacturing as part of what they do, more sustainable. My job there is commercializing research and running impact programs with businesses. So I spend a lot of my life working with businesses of all sizes, and that covers startups through to slightly larger players like Airbus and Toyota. And as well as doing those things, I have also started 7 businesses. So for those of you that are on that journey yourselves, I've got an understanding of what it feels like to be where you are, and you know, that is something that we try and bring to bear in the program that we run. So that's a bit of background on me. The EIT program, the accelerator program, is one of a number of programs that are run by EIT in the food part of their operation, and it was set up in 2018. And it's been running since then. We joined it in the UK in 2019, and it's slowly been building out and is delivered across different places in Europe. This is a bit old, so this has the hubs that we were running this year. There's another one next year in Paris, and you're welcome to apply to any hub. You don't have to apply to the UK hub simply because you happen to be in the UK. It's probably one of my pieces of early advice here would be, look at all the hubs, see which ones have a program that you'll feel most comfortable with, because we all do things slightly differently, although we have the overall objectives and similarity in approach. At the high level, at the detail level, we are quite different from one another, and that's part of the strength of the whole program. It's funded by the European Union as part of Horizon Europe. For those of you that got any interest in the way that the European Union funds things, and they put in a lot of money. I can't remember the exact amount that goes into the EIT Food program, but it's in the hundreds of millions. And some of that gets parceled out into this particular program. I won't go into more detail there. You can find out a lot more online if it's relevant to you, or you can ask questions. The UK hub, which is really what I'm going to talk more about, it's led out of Cambridge by myself, with Francis Bycroft and Shima Barakat. We don't do it exclusively. We have partners who help us with this. So we have partners at Reading, and they bring, you know, some specializations of their own. They have a particularly strong agricultural technology and food capability set, and so they're able to bring some of those specialisms into the program. We have a very important partner in Cartesia, who are the inventors of the triple chasm model, and who join and provide some of the guidance and operation of that within the context of the program. And then we have PepsiCo and Agrimetrics, who are corporate partners in this, and they also bring their experience and interest in working with startups as part of their innovation activities. We also have a mentor team, so we try and provide, well, we don't try, we always provide all of the people on the program with mentors, and we have, well, it says here 20. In fact, we probably draw from about 50 different mentors, but we have at any one program 20 active, so we try and give 2 mentors to each startup. And then we have educators. We have specialists who come in and talk about and give their experience, whether that's from the perspective of being a startup, going through the sort of things that you're facing and being able to explain how they have addressed and succeeded in dealing with those challenges. Or there are people who bring in other forms of expertise. That might be legal, it might be about human resources, it might be about team building, it could be in all sorts of different areas. So we have access to a very wide range of skills and knowledge, and we try and bring that to bear in different ways, depending on who's on the program each year. So we started in 2019, Reading joined us, and we started bringing in the triple chasm framework in 2020. This last year, Agrimetrics joined us. We've been running the first year pre-COVID. We ran all face-to-face, mostly here in Cambridge. The last 2 years we've been running remote. I have to say that I think the remote version is actually more effective than the in-person version. But 2022 we plan to run as a hybrid, depending on the health situation, but I would expect that we will run a mixture of face-to-face activities which have certain benefits to them, and the online parts which give us the capability of bringing a much wider and more powerful set of voices to the table, and also prevent the level of disruption for yourselves as startups that we noted people were struggling with in the first year of purely in-person operation. We're looking for ventures, you know, that can create sustainable impact in the food system and that can scale that reasonably effectively. So to some extent, we are driven by climate imperatives, but not entirely there. There are other things from the social side. So we are interested in health and food, as well as the ability to have environmental impact as well. And we've had a wide range of different types of businesses through the program, from those providing solutions for health and feeding of people with dementia, through to people who are creating artificial meat. So there's a wide range of possibilities for the way in which people bring and participate. And I'll talk more about some of the other things that we're looking for in terms of attitude and teams and so on as we go through. give you a little bit of background, we've had 30 companies through the program so far. It might sound strange to say that 29 have completed it. It is quite a difficult and taxing program. Generally, we have across Europe a dropout rate of about 1 per hub per year. So we're slightly ahead of the curve on that so far, which is good. We keep in regular contact with many of our alumni, and they often come and participate in the program. So we like to bring in people who've been through the program and can talk about where they are and what they've done differently, but also how they're dealing with the challenges that they're now facing 2 and 3 years on from the time that, or the stage that the people on the program are at the moment. Yeah, we've now got quite a few of our 2019 alumni are in Series A. You can see there one of those, Pete Rose company, Deep Branch, raised 8 million earlier this year, and there are others who have raised multi-million Series A inputs over the last few months as well. So it's proving to be useful. I think we can say they would agree with that, and we bring them in. We keep in touch with them, and we try and you know, maintain and build that network that allows everyone to benefit from being able to pick up the phone or drop a note to somebody and say, you know what, Pete, when you were talking about this, I think I'm in the same place now. Any chance we could have a chat? And that is something that we find is happening amongst the alumni on a fairly informal basis. So that's just giving you a little bit of background on that. I'd like to spend a little bit of time now talking about the triple chasm model. And I noticed, I think, that that Sam Dodds is on the call. Sam is one of the guys from Cartesia. So if I get stuck, Sam, I'm going to expect you to jump in and help me on this, on my explanation. I'm sure I'll be fine. So the triple chasm model has become the methodology that we use to underpin the course, and it's based on research, which obviously, being a university, we're very keen to use science-based information in order to drive how we do things. And basically, this looks at the research they did, looked at how 3,000 startups ended up as 370 successes, and what were the things that happened to those startups, the decisions they made that drove them to fail. Obviously, understanding failure in this context is really interesting and important, and hopefully helps other people avoid it in the future. And that's the basis of why we've got this underlying what we've got. I'll explain more about it in a moment. We use this throughout the program to identify specific areas, and then we expand and explore those, and that allows everyone that's participating to have a really clear sense of why and what it is they're looking at from week to week. Our mentors are trained in the methodology as well, so when the offline things are taking place with the mentors, they also can pick up and follow through on that. And what you can see there is a skills matrix. One of the things that we do in order to help with this is we ask all of our mentors, in fact, everyone that participates in the program from a delivery point of view, to put their skills down. So we understand also who's particularly good at different things. And that allows us to be clear when we are trying to allocate or assign people to specific help, that we're picking the right ones. So this is a very, I'm not going to go into detail on this, but this is a view of the overall data set that was used by Cartesia in their analysis to start with. And what you can see here is it's based on the number of customers on the x-axis and the time on the y-axis. Sorry, I've got the wrong way around. Over time, what this shows is how this is changing. And what therefore it tends to identify, as is noted on here, is that there are 3 points at which significant change happens. And they have been identified as chasms 1, 2, and 3. For those of you that may be familiar with crossing the chasm, the original concept was that there was a particular chasm, and that businesses that wanted to be effective and grow and succeed needed to understand how to achieve crossing that particular chasm. What this does is use a much more analytical view to identify the fact that there is not one but several, and they occur at different stages in the development, in the commercial development of a business. So here you can see the same information presented in slightly different ways. So by taking off the log scale that you have on the chart I've just shown you, and on the left-hand chart here, you can see how and where these chasms occur in terms of the number of customers that have been accumulated by a company. And so you're crossing chasms 1 and 2 with very few customers. And then as you start to build up more of a customer base, you still have to face getting across chasm 3 before you can really accelerate your growth. And that's the basis by which we're trying to help and ensure that the accelerator program, which is principally looking at what's happening around chasm 2, is effective. So what Cartesia were able to do when they examined the data that underpinned what was happening in these companies was they were able to identify that there were a range of factors that classified them as vectors. So they're things that are taking place that are important and that affect the ability of these businesses to go through and become successful. And these are a mixture of external things, internal things, and some that are a combination of the two. So there's the external composite and internal vectors. And you can see that external, they are things like, what's the market? How well do you understand the market that you're going to be playing in, and what that market is driven by? So that's an understanding of something external. Whereas on the other side, the internal understanding of the technology and your ability to deploy that technology is something that's purely internal, but also equally has a very strong impact on the potential for success. And then in the middle, you've got things that are more a combination of those, like the ability to position strategically in order to get competitive advantage. So we use these across the range of the program. And this chart here is looking at the TRL, so technology readiness. Many of you, if you are technology-based companies, are probably familiar with technology readiness levels. We also look at commercial readiness levels, and that's an assessment of how ready a business is, as opposed to its technology is, to be successful commercially. And this is looking at those different levels. So you've got that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. across the top, and the various chasms, and then down the first column, you've got those 12 vectors identified. And as you move across this chart, you see how important is that vector at any particular time. So you can see that as your technology and commercial readiness level changes, the importance of different activities varies. And the picture I'm trying to draw out here really is that around the time of crossing chasm 2, which is where we're looking to accelerate, everything becomes important. Up until then, there is a fair amount of variation across these. And one of the reasons that it's very, that businesses can fail at this stage is that they have to be able to be on top of so many different things at the same time. We find that by using this and by pulling these vectors apart and then helping you understand where and how you're performing against those, you're able to be much more likely to understand what your actual performance level is, as opposed to what you may believe it to be. You're able to think about all of these things as separate activities, as opposed to seeing them wrapped up when potentially you're just looking at your business overall. And therefore you can focus and identify what you need to be better at and which ones you don't need to put so much effort into because you already have a reasonable degree of control over them. And that's why we like this model to drive through at this particular stage of development. The way in which we portray this is by using these type of spidergrams in order to be able to identify and give a pattern to the way in which a particular company performs. And what you can see here is the hard information is what the self-assessment is of this particular company, and the dotted information is what you'd expect based on the data that's been was collected from the research. And wherever there's a big delta, you have to question, okay, why is that delta there? And is that a perception problem or is that a reality? And if it's a reality, then what needs to be done to address it? And there is a lot of very important work that we do to help people understand the reality as opposed to their perception of where they are. So we use that, and we also, finally on this, we try and bring in this understanding of sustainability, because this is very important in terms of the wave of driving that's going on at the moment. And many of the startups we work with have a very strong sustainability goal, if not purpose, around what it is they're doing. So what we're able to do here is to apply some sustainability factors to the overall commercial view that people have, and that often creates a slightly different profile. And you can see here between the left and the right, the profile is quite different, and the priorities become quite different once you've applied sustainability to the pure commercial view. And that again allows companies to think about what they need to do differently and where the focus needs to be. So I hope that's helpful as far as the underpinnings of what we do are. We can come back and answer some questions if you've got them on that, and hopefully Sam can be around and give more clarity on it. I move quickly on to give you an idea about what the program looked like for this year, and it probably would look not dissimilar for next year. So the program runs between the end of June and the beginning of October. We take some time off in August because most people, including those people delivering the program, tend to have holidays. It becomes difficult to schedule and get really good value there. We run 2 days a week for half a day. There's some presentational work every time. There are always, when people talk, most of the time is about questions and answers. So it's very interactive, even though it may look like there's a lot of presenting going on. We run workshops where we bring in specific tools and specialist capabilities and allow you to play with those and get a sense as to how you might incorporate them into the way you work going forward. And then we have quite a lot of interactive working where we'll put you into small groups or teams and work on a particular problem that may be related to one or more of the companies in that team. And then there's offline material that's available to people to go and get more depth if they feel that they want to go deeper into a particular area because it's especially relevant to them. And you can see on the right, that's roughly how we break down the different vectors across the course of the whole program. And then at the end of the program, there's a showcase. There's something which allows all of the people from across the European program to come together. This year it was a hybrid, so you could go and physically travel to, where was it, Genoa? I think I can't remember, somewhere on the coast of Spain. or you can attend in a virtual environment. And it's an opportunity to meet with investors, with corporate businesses who are interested in startups for a range of different reasons, and to meet with academics and other startups. So it's a very interesting mixing event, and a lot of people tend to pick things up that are useful to them from there. The sort of outcomes that companies get from going through this program is, more ability to grow, much greater understanding of where and in what ways growth can be achieved, whether that's how and in what sort of financing would be most appropriate for their particular stage, type of business sector, and so on. Understanding the areas of risk in making that growth and being able to address those and build a plan as to where to focus. Importantly, some really good insight, and I think a lot of people come away with this as to their own strengths and weaknesses. I know one of the things that I found most difficult in all of the businesses I've started is really being clear and feeling that I had some objective view on what I and my teams were good at and what we weren't good at. There's a very human tendency to be quite hard on oneself, and therefore not necessarily feel confident about where the strengths and weaknesses lie. And this gives a really good objective ability to assess that. The building of networks across the other startups, both the alumni, the people you'll work with on this program, and people who are on the other programs is I think one of the things that's helpful. The ability to form relationships with appropriate sort of partners from the corporate space who may be interested in joint innovation work, who may be interested in helping you get to market if they're if they're in the retail side, may be able to interested in developing early stage manufacturing and so on. Becoming more sustainable, having that better embedded into the business. And being able to gain funding. I think being able and the understanding of where and in what ways and the diverse ways that funding can be achieved is very helpful. And there is a small amount of funding available as part of the program. It's not enough to get excited about, somewhere in the region of 10,000 euros. But the program itself also has a fund and makes placed investments, and this year, several of our ventures have benefited from investment by EIT into their businesses, and that can be considerably more, to the tune of several €100,000. So those are some of the outcomes that have been helpful for people. I'm roughly on time. So if you're interested, how would you apply? Well, I was hoping I'd be able to give you a URL to a website where you could go and sign up. It's been slightly delayed, but it will open in the next few days, and it'll be open until the end of February at the very earliest. It could extend that data. In the past, it's tended to extend a bit, but don't delay. If you go to eitfan.eu, then there'll be a notification up next week on where to go and sign up. Or if you want to, you're welcome to drop a line to myself or Francis, and we'll come back to you as soon as we've got that detail. So that was a bit of a quick run through what the accelerator program is about and what underpins it, what makes it successful for people. But I would say, don't take my word. And we're fortunate enough to have Sean and Andrea from Micron Agritech and Fieldwork Robotics, two of this year's alumni, to give you a bit of an insight into what they found useful in this, and also a little bit about what sort of business they are, and so you can get a sense as to whether that might resonate with yourselves. in that case, I'd like to hand over to Sean to give us a bit of insight into Micron and his experience of the program. I will stop sharing my screen and allow Sean to take over.
Thanks, Ian. Right, I will share, and hopefully you guys will be able to see it without any issues. Share screen. Right, how's that?
Very good.
Perfect. So, yeah, as Ian mentioned, I'm one of the founders at Micron Agritech. We're a Dublin-based startup, originally spun out of TU Dublin, and we took part in the EIT Food Accelerator Network just this summer gone. So from June, I think it was, through to sort of October, and found it really useful. I'll just start off by giving a little bit of background on what we do, the business, and then talk a little bit about our learnings. And then if there's any specific questions, we can cover that in the Q&A afterwards. So parasites are one of the most common health issues in grazing animals worldwide. They impact things like feed efficiency, weight gain, production, essentially profits for farmers. But at the moment, if a farmer or a vet or an animal owner want to test their animals for parasites, they need to take a fecal sample and send it to a lab and wait up to 5 days for a result. So it's just way too long. So because of this, most farmers and animal owners won't test their animals regularly for worms. They will just give them a routine dose of medication a couple of times a year as a preventative measure. That's really unsustainable. And so because of that sort of overuse of medication and not using the right medications at the right time, it's leading to a buildup of resistance, very similar to antibiotics in humans. We use them too much when we don't need them, and they're going to stop working eventually. So to try and combat that, there's actually new legislation coming into effect across the EU and the UK and Ireland in the next few months. Essentially, it's going to prohibit that prophylactic use of medication for parasites in animals. And so farmers and animal owners will need to start testing a lot more, but they're left with this slow and inefficient system. And that's where we come in. So essentially, our first product is Micron Kit. It's a rapid and portable parasite testing kit that allows the user to collect, prepare, and analyze a sample anywhere, and absolutely anybody can use it. They get the results instantly through a smartphone app, and those get tracked over time. So we can do lots of really interesting things with that. Essentially, how it works is the phone of the user essentially attaches to a microscope within the kit. It takes over 5,000 images of the sample. That's all compressed and uploaded to our server, where we have machine learning algorithms that are able to automatically detect the parasites in the images. So you can see there's some examples of those there. Software then quantifies those parasites, calculates the burden level of infection, and gives the results back to the user in under 10 minutes with a really simple PDF. So it works really well. Just to give you guys an idea of the sort of commercial model. So there's kind of 3 pillars here. We have the sales of the kits themselves. That's kind of sold as a once-off to the vet or the farmer or the animal owner. Then we have the testing subscriptions. So users will purchase tests, in packs. Essentially, it's kind of like the HP printer model is probably the easiest analogy. And then the third pillar, which is sort of the most important and the key aspect, is the data. So we have the ability through the platform to collect lots of different data, generate heat maps on outbreaks, etc., track things over time, and that there's a lot of value in that. So Micron Kit is kind of the first product in a diagnostics platform that we are building. So this is just kind of to give a sense of the broader vision. We have our core technology, which is a platform, and that can be trained to detect multiple other things as we grow. And we're set to launch Micron Kit early next year. And so after that, we'll start developing other types of tests. And, as part of this overall platform, then we can start pulling in data from other types of sensors and third parties as well. And essentially all of that can be fed through the AI stack that we can build and give really valuable insights to the users and lots of people in the value chain. So I hope that gave a good overview. Happy to answer any questions on that from anybody. But just to cover maybe some key learnings from the EIT FAN. So really high level here, but happy to go into more detail if anyone finds anything interesting. But I suppose the first thing for us, who is the user and who is the customer? So a really interesting thing, sort of at the start of the summer, we were taking quite a one-dimensional view of our product offering. And we were kind of saying, well, we've built this cool diagnostics kit. It's useful for farmers, vets, animal owners. So that's who our customer is. And our kind of whole commercial model was built around that. But as we were going through the fan sessions and talking to some of the other startups and some of the experts there, our view sort of started to shift, and that was challenged. Those people that I mentioned are definitely our users, but perhaps they don't have to be the customers, and there might be another way to monetize. So looking at the data piece, an example could be that, well, actually, the customer is the animal health pharma company that are trying to sell these medications. And maybe they are the ones that are paying us, and the users actually are not paying a whole lot. So it's like the Google model. So we started to ask ourselves that question, and we're kind of rethinking the whole commercial model now as a result. And I think we could build potentially a much more valuable business that way by changing that mindset. The second sort of key learning, and it kind of ties into the first one, is, are we selling products or are we selling data? And again, I think just through the different sessions throughout the program, a lot of what EIT will do is sort of challenge your pre-existing perceptions of what your business is, because I suppose we spend so much time as founders working, getting stuck in on the business, but maybe we don't spend enough time thinking the bigger picture and working on the business rather than in it. So again, another sort of question that we realized is positioning ourselves as just a company that's developing cool tech for diagnostics maybe isn't ambitious enough. And actually what we're doing is we're developing tools for data collection. And as we all know, like, data is the new gold. So really, open our eyes to thinking about how we can prioritize that and monetize that data. The third kind of final key learning, again, ties into what I was talking about before. It's just, do we need to rethink our commercial model? So I kind of gave that example of maybe the customers are not the users, maybe the customers are the pharma companies, or maybe universities or research institutes or governments even. The EU bringing in this legislation, of course, will be really interested in relevant data showing how parasite infections are changing over time across different areas. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything more for me to talk on. That's kind of the end of what I had planned to say there. I think just one other thing I will mention, because Ian, in general, just in terms of other benefits from the attending the FAN network, 100% meeting the other startups, having the opportunity to attend the Venture Summit in Malaga, have face-to-face networking opportunities was super valuable. We connected with potential new investors in the business and potential commercial partners. So huge value there. And actually we received, we were one of the lucky ones that received a further investment from EIT Food to the tune of €300,000, which was great. We were just approaching a funding round at the time. So we applied for that and we were able to access that funding. So great opportunities there. Yeah, I think that's probably all I have to mention at this stage. Like I said, Ian, we can cover more in the Q&A if there's anything else, but I hope that gives a good overview.
That's great, Sean. Thank you. Very, very, you're very concise and clear, which is always great. So we'll pick up any other questions in a few moments. So if you've got anything for Sean, then just hold on for a second. What I'd like to do next is introduce Andrea Pezzicati who's the CTO at Fieldwork Robotics, who is also part of our this year's program and has a very different sort of business. So Andrea, over to you.
Thank you, Ian, and thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Andrea Pezzicati. I'm the CTO at Fieldwork, and I'll just give you a brief background of the company and what we do without going in too much detail. And to do that, I'll just share a quick video of our product, which is probably better than a million other words. If I can find the application. Share screen. So we are a robotic company while the video is playing, and this is our first alpha prototype, and we are developing an autonomous navigation platform to harvest raspberries. So this is the first crop we are focusing on. We are at the alpha stage prototype. As you can see, the prototype is running in the field, harvesting raspberry. The task is very simple, but very challenging. So is harvesting basically a soft fruit, and such a delicate soft fruit like a raspberry, like a human does, and place it in a container, an appropriate container, which is a typical supermarket container that the grower use, in a precise way without any damage, ready to be to the right level of quality, which is the other difficult part, ready to be shipped and dispatched to supermarket. The company started 3 years ago, and basically in these 3 years we've been running with a series of grants from government and small private investment, which we just started to collect, and we're now going towards the Series A investments, which is going to be the good part of next year. I'll stop this video, is just going in a loop. So the program that we joined, the EIT Food Accelerator, what does that mean? Or what did that give us for a startup like ours? Well, certainly the most valuable thing that we got from the program was obviously the extended network, as Sean and Ian already mentioned. It's a very wide network and quite valuable as well, because you have the opportunity to meet people from any sorts of background, startups from any kind of different industries and type of product, range of product. And first of all, the best thing is that you don't feel alone. So when you embark on a startup journey, you are normally obviously on your own or with a small team, going towards your idea and just pressing on, and the challenges you face are quite difficult, and sometimes it's very difficult to on your own to focus on the right challenge and on the right direction. With the EIT, it's a very good network of individuals that will be there for you. So that is the main thing. So you don't feel alone, and you start having the feeling of collaborating with others that are not necessarily part of your business, but they can definitely add value and help you. You will create links with other industrial partners, for example. So in these networks, there will be industrial partners that you might find useful for the proceeding of your startup and adventure. You will obviously link with other peers, which are startups like yours that might face the same challenges and face difficulties, and sometimes it's nice to see that you're not on your own in facing those challenges, and you can relate to others and ask different questions and have conversation which might lead to some positive results or solutions. It will open certainly other opportunities, which could be, as Ian said, on the funding side, meeting other people that might be interested in your idea, your product, or your service, or your proposition, and also it's a platform that is effectively free to showcase your product, and by showcasing your product, the opportunity are also endless. So we all know as a startups how difficult is normally from a budget point of view to do some proper marketing. Well, the EIT Food Accelerator is also a platform that allow you to have some free publicity of your company and your product. And then you might also find potential investors. So you never really know. There were a couple of instances in this one where people expressed interest in other people's products, and from there, there were some leads to go into some investment down the line. So which is obviously very welcome for a startup. And then from the network, then you are also able to build on your expertise, because obviously we all have a lot of expertise in startups, but definitely not all the expertise you need. So you have the opportunity to understand which are your strengths and how you can exploit them to the best of your ability, but also build on your weaknesses. So it's very important to realize what the weaknesses of a business are, and understand there are an awful lot of people around you that can actually help in overcoming those weaknesses or mitigating any risk that could come out and build onto them as well. As has been mentioned by others, it is very important in a startup journey to focus on the right direction. And I think sometimes it's clear in all our mind, we know what the product is, we know what the goal is, but is very, very easy to lose focus on the journey and not being able to drive resources, which are obviously limited as the budget is all the time in a startup journey. Is very, very important to focalize those resources and channel them in the right place at the right moment. So like in our case, for example, we are exiting an initial prototype stage, going into a more defined prototype and to a pre-series journey. And for us, the manufacturing, for example, journey that we have had is the main focus, very important. And with Ian specifically and all the link in the manufacturing environment, we found a lot of interesting exchange. We made some link, and we are going to follow up on this link after the program. So one very important thing is not only for the duration of this program, the weeks that you will have to be engaged, is the support and the link that you will retain post-program. And this is very important. So it's not a program that just ends there with your commitment for the limited number of months, but it's a foundation. It's the start of a much longer term relationship with whoever you are going to encounter in this journey. And what we found in the end is that you are not there just for the start, and you're definitely going to be building value on your business going forward. I think this is pretty much the gist. I don't want to bore you any further, so if there's any question for us as well, we'll be here.
Andrea, thank you so much. It's a great to get some a different sort of perspective, although I think you'll, if you've been listening, you'll obviously pick out some of the commonalities between what Sean and Andrea were saying, and perhaps some of the things that that I picked out as well. We've got a few minutes for questions. I don't think anyone's put any into the Q&A specifically so far. You're welcome to do that. Also, if you wanted to ask a question directly, then just use the raise hand function, and we can open up the mic and hear what you'd like to say. So while you just gather your thoughts, I've got a couple of questions that were sent in advance. First of those is, what are some of the biggest barriers to growing a startup successfully, and how do you overcome them? Well, I can give you a very simple answer. You know, there are all sorts of barriers. Many of them are commercial. The best way to overcome them is to apply and join this program. That would be it might seem a trite answer, but actually it is. Understanding the barriers is probably one of the biggest challenges, because there are many things that you could be working on, and some of those will not be barriers and some of them will. So how do you overcome them depends on understanding. And I would say that ability to gain insight is probably the most important one. Most people would tend to think, oh, actually, what I should be doing is focusing on how I'm going to raise enough money so that I can do whatever I need to do next. But that may not actually be the most important thing at a particular point in time. So yes, the understanding and having that insight and awareness, I think, is one of the biggest barriers. And the other one probably is knowing who to go and talk to at the right time. And that's part of this whole idea of a network, is to give you and give everybody the opportunity to pick on and find the relevant sort of knowledge and capabilities at the time when you need to do that. Sean, Andrea, I don't know if you'd like to comment on that as well.
Yeah, no, I think he is absolutely right what you said, and realization is the first step for overcoming those barriers. So understanding exactly which one are the key one that you need to focus on. You're not going to be able to remove all of them, but there are some that are really important to be removed. So understanding them and then linking to the right people, which the EIT will provide as well, I think is going to be the first step.
Thank you. I've actually got a question in the Q&A for Sean. So I don't know if you can see the Q&A, Sean, but Manash is asking, is your technology based on photo matching?
Yeah, I can't see it, but yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a good question. So essentially what we've done is it's image recognition. So to train our software, there was no pre-existing data set. So we essentially had to go and collect thousands of fecal samples from cattle and sheep and horses, prepare them and take images of them all manually, and then individually annotate each image, just essentially by drawing a box around the parasite that we're looking for, labeling that and feeding that into a database. And that's how the model is able to learn to recognize them over time. It compares the new image to the sort of existing data setup that we've built. So if you're familiar with training, machine learning, that's the process we followed.
Thank you, Sean. Quick follow-up to that was, is 81% accurate prediction? It's not really a question, I suppose. Is 81% an accurate enough prediction? Getting quite technical for me here.
Yeah, it depends on what you mean, what you're doing to judge accuracy. 81% probably is good for a lot of applications. We are higher than that. In fact, an early study we did showed that humans, in labs, tend to operate at about 80% when you take human error into account. And we're quite a bit higher than that in terms of how accurate we're able to detect certain parasites, but it depends on your variables.
I guess, Manash, if you wanted to try and follow up with Sean, you can find Micron Agritech online and connect directly. Tim is
happy to do that. Yeah, just Manash, my email address is just sean@micronagritech.com. So feel free to reach out.
Thanks. And Tim is asking, what's the success rate from application to membership of the accelerator, and are there entry criteria? So the success rate is, I think this year we had just under 1,000 applicants for 60 places. Next year there'll be 70 places, but that probably won't make a big difference to the overall rate. That's what the success rate looks like. The way in which we assess who's appropriate to take forward onto the program, well, is that we evaluate the application that you put in, and we'll ask you a range of questions around that, not only looking at the level of innovation of what it is that you're doing, but also what your level of development is as a business, what sort of team you've managed to draw together, and so on. And then that filter, if you pass through that filter, then we do some online interviewing. So there's an opportunity to actually have some discussion. And again, we're trying to then assess aptitude, attitude, knowledge, and fit of the business with the things that we're trying to do specifically within that year's program. And I can't necessarily let you know what the specifics will be of the 2022 program. They'll come out when the website opens next week. And then those people that are successful there go on to a long list and the various hubs. So you apply you give a preference for your first, second preferences as to which hub you'd like to be part of. And then you're interviewed by the hub. So then we get to interview you, and we try and from there work out how we can put together a group of 10 companies that will be likely to succeed and also be a good match, and hopefully a good blend amongst the different people that will participate. And so from that list of interviews, we will identify the 10 that we'll offer places to, and a short list of reserves. And if you didn't get through in the 10, we usually find at least one of them drops out because of circumstances. So I think every year we've had one or two of the reserves step in as well. So provided you can get down to being in this year, it'll be, I would guess, 100 companies from the 1,000 or so will hopefully attract. So well, we've got about a 10% chance of success. Hopefully that helps, Tim. And it's a free program, so there is no, in case that hadn't been clear, I didn't mention it. We've just clicked over 2 o'clock. I haven't got any more questions in the Q&A, so I think I'd like to thank everybody, particularly thank Sean and Andrea for giving up their time and coming to talk. For all of you that came along to listen, thank you for making that time. I hope it's been helpful. I hope if you are thinking this works for me, you're going to apply. That would always be good. You can, as I say, get in touch with myself or Francis if you want to follow up. I think both Sean and Andrea have got people who want to follow up with them as well. So the network always builds one way or another. And really, it just remains me to wish everyone a safe and festive break, if you're having a break over the next few days. And hopefully I'll see some of you in 2022. Thanks very much.